Ready for a deep dive that'll stay with you. Today we're going into The Women, Kristin Hannah's newest novel, and let me tell you, it's powerful stuff. We're talking Vietnam War, but not the battles you see on screen.
No, not at all.
This one's about the unsung heroes, the women right there on the battlefields with courage and compassion you wouldn't believe.
What Hannah does so well here, she takes history, something we think we've seen a million times, and makes it so personal. Forget a history lesson. We're living this war through the eyes of those pushed aside.
Exactly, and that's what hits you hard. We meet Frankie McGrath. This young woman throws out all the rules, volunteers as a nurse in Vietnam. Can you imagine what makes someone run towards war?
Well, for Frankie, it's breaking free. Picture the 60s. Yeah, huge changes, but for women, the expectations were still so strong. She's desperate for a life bigger than what society's offering. Not just helping, it's self-discovery she's after. But that idealism, it crashes hard when she faces war, believe me.
Like growing up overnight, times 1,000, right? One day you're living your life, the next you're seeing the worst of humanity. Life-altering doesn't even begin to cover it. But Hannah, she doesn't hold back on how brutal it really was.
And that's where it gets really good. See, Frankie doesn't just have to survive Vietnam. It's what comes after that's the real battle.
You can just feel that weight, can't you? Coming home, expecting maybe a parade, but what she gets instead.
Nothing. Blank stares, people confused, even judging. Think about facing the worst humanity offers, then coming home to. Crickets. Your people, family, friends, they just can't even imagine.
Like you're speaking a language they've never heard, right? Doesn't even have to be war, any experience that changes you to the core.
That's why this story just grabs you. This is Frankie's second war, fighting for who she is after all that trauma. Hannah nails it, showing how war messes you up, especially for women supposed to just go back to normal. There's this scene, someone asks Frankie, "Why'd you go?" Just lays bare every judgment, every double standard thrown at women, no matter what they've lived through.
That scene, man, it hits you in the gut. All that weight, what they expect from her, you can practically hear the accusation in their voice. Good girls don't do that, you know?
And that's Hannah's point exactly. How society, even the people closest, they can't make sense of Frankie, of what she did in the war, with their tiny idea of what a woman should be.
And that's where The Women really gets it right. It's not just Frankie, it's giving a voice to so many stories that have stayed silent.
Exactly. Frankie's story, while fictional, reflects a very real and often overlooked aspect of war. The experiences of those who served, but whose sacrifices were minimized or ignored because of their gender.
It makes you wonder how many other Frankies are out there, their stories waiting to be heard. And that's why this deep dive is so important. By understanding Frankie's journey, we become more attuned to the unseen struggles of those around us, those who may be carrying invisible wounds. So Frankie's back home, grappling with these invisible wounds, feeling utterly alone. But there's a glimmer of hope, right? The other nurses, the women who shared that battlefield experience, talk about a bond forged in fire.
Absolutely. These women become each other's lifeline, a mirror reflecting their individual struggles with trauma. Imagine a group of women thrown together in the most intense pressure cooker environment imaginable, witnessing unimaginable suffering day in and day out.
You're right, it's a different kind of bond. They've seen things most people couldn't even fathom, things that bind them together in a way nothing else could. It's like they're speaking a language only they understand.
And yet, even within this sisterhood, a chilling undercurrent of isolation persists. Frankie never truly feels whole again, a poignant reminder of war's deep, lasting wounds.
It's heartbreaking because you want her to find solace in that shared experience, but the trauma runs so deep, it makes you wonder, does anyone ever truly come back from that?
That's the question Hannah leaves us grappling with. There's no easy answer, no magic solution. Healing, it seems, is an ongoing process fraught with setbacks and breakthroughs. And that's the genius of Hannah's writing. She doesn't offer simple solutions or tie things up neatly. She leaves us contemplating the complexities of trauma, the long road to healing, and the invisible scars that war leaves behind.
It's a reminder that even within seemingly supportive environments, true understanding can be elusive. The isolation, the feeling of being misunderstood, it's something Frankie carries with her long after the physical wounds have healed.
And it's not just Frankie. Remember, this novel isn't just about one woman's experience. It's a microcosm of a larger societal issue. Think about how we as a culture address trauma, especially war trauma.
You're right, it is a larger issue. It's like we often focus on the physical wounds, the visible scars, but what about the invisible ones? The emotional and psychological toll, the burden of memories, the struggle to reintegrate into a world that feels foreign after such intense experiences.
Exactly. Hannah forces us to confront those uncomfortable truths, to acknowledge the inadequacy of our responses to those who've sacrificed so much. And she does it through the lens of gender, highlighting how women's experiences, particularly in wartime, have been historically marginalized or erased altogether.
The Women shines a light on these forgotten narratives, these untold stories of resilience, courage, and sacrifice that deserve to be heard and understood.
Precisely. Think about it. How often are women's voices centered in narratives about war? We're conditioned to view war as a primarily masculine domain, with women relegated to supporting roles. But The Women flips that script, placing women front and center, not just as caregivers, but as complex individuals grappling with their own demons and forging their own paths.
It's a powerful reminder that war impacts everyone, regardless of gender, and that the lines between victim, perpetrator, and bystander are often blurred in the fog of conflict. We're so used to seeing war through a particular lens, and Hannah challenges us to expand that perspective.
Absolutely. And in doing so, she opens up a broader conversation about how we perceive and respond to trauma, not just on a personal level, but as a society. What are the stories we're not telling? Whose voices are being silenced? Whose experiences are we failing to acknowledge?
It makes you think, right? We need to do better, be more aware, really listen even when it's hard, when it challenges what we think we know.
It's about seeing the human in every story, even the ones that make us question things. Who are the people we walk past every day carrying these burdens no one sees? Who's not being heard because we're so busy with our own ideas?
That's the heart of The Women, isn't it? It's a plea to really listen, to question what we assume in those untold stories. They're everywhere, not just war, they shape the world. What are we missing in our own lives?
And it reminds us history is not just dates, big events. It's people, millions of them, each one with a story worth telling.
Hannah really gets that across. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones we haven't heard, the ones that force us to see beyond our own little bubble, how messy and complicated being human really is.
So when you finish The Women, don't just close the book. Take Frankie with you. Let her remind you to find those untold stories in your own life. Listen with your whole heart and never underestimate how strong people can be, even when they face the worst.
And that's what these deep dives are for, right? To find those stories and really connect with them. Until next time, keep searching, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep listening.